is 91,826,060 miles, which is a figure very close to the modern estimate of 92 million miles, approximately, the distance of the Earth to the Sun. If you are wondering how we know all these precise measurements, we were not able to until the advent of the era of the space satellites, which can measure by means of laser beams distances to within a few feet. It might seem almost unbelievable that the Great Pyramid could contain so much scientific information. However, to deny it is to ignore the facts, or consider it all to be just chance. If you still think chance, then here are some more facts to consider as chance. The measurements of the sides of the pyramid give in pyramid inches the exact days, minutes, and seconds of our 3 astronomical years: solar, sidereal, and animalistic. The combination of the last 2 is 25 minutes added to each year, which is the precession of the equinoxes, a period approximately 25,826.54 years. This chart illustrates the precession of the equinoxes. It requires 25,826.54 years for our Earth's north-south pole to point toward our present pole star and return to it. That figure also happens to be the sum of the 2 diagonals of the pyramid's base. The solar years are also found in several other places in the design of the Great Pyramid. For example, the antechamber's length of 116.26 pyramid inches, when multiplied by pi, or 3.14159, equals 365.242353. Our exact solar year in days, minutes, and seconds. Another example, from the center of the antechamber to the north wall of the king's chamber is exactly 365.242353 inches. And here is an interesting observation. If we theoretically cut the antechamber circle in half, each half would fit on each side of the coffer with no remainder. Why? I haven't the slightest idea. It just does. And by the way, the coffer's length plus its width equals pi times its height. Although Al-Mamun and his men found the coffer in the king's chamber, they also found it, to their amazement and disappointment, empty. No king's mummy, and certainly no treasure. They, as well as all pyramid visitors over the centuries, failed to realize that the Great Pyramid was the sign and witness of which Isaiah wrote. In that day there shall be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. It is most noteworthy that the numerical value of the Hebrew words written by Isaiah, when added together, add up to 5,449, the exact number of inches in the height of the Great Pyramid as left by the builders. That is, without the capstone. Although the pyramid was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, second king of the 4th Egyptian dynasty, it should be obvious by now that he was not the builder, nor did he have the understanding of the scientific knowledge found in this design. Then who was the builder? And where did the information come from to construct it? The Egyptian books of the dead record that the builders of the Great Pyramid came from Arabia. Now, Arabia was the home of the Shemites, ancestors of Abraham. Among these descendants was Jatan and his 10 sons, mentioned in the book of Genesis. They all lived during the period when the Great Pyramid was being built. One should keep in mind that they were direct descendants of Enoch, to whom God gave prophetic and scientific information, and among other things, the times and courses of the heavenly bodies, which could only mean the stars and their cycles. The names of Joktan's sons are to be found in all biblical geographic maps of their period. They must have been the early shepherd kings who invaded Egypt and occupied the land prior to Khufu's time. Having identified the builders of the pyramid, we come to its most amazing feature. In the many chambers and passages, we find incorporated a prophetic history based on an inch-year scale, which started when the building commenced. The clue to finding this key and why the antechamber was called the Enoch Circle was when the antechamber's width of 116.26 inches is multiplied by pi, the result being the circle of 365.242. This, when converted to years, equaled the lifespan of Enoch. This suggested that each inch in the pyramid might also represent a year. Another clue was two astronomical alignments. First, the descending passage had a perfect bearing on the then North Pole star, Alpha Draconis, the so-called dragon star. And second, a scored line in descending passage 482 pyramid inches down from the entrance. This straight knife-edged line was engraved from floor to roof and was in perfect alignment with the star Alcyone in the Pleiades, in the constellation of Taurus the Bull. Only in 2141 BC was the cut line in perfect alignment with the star Alcyone, and at the same time the pole star was in perfect alignment with the descending passage. Now, if we start from the astronomical date of 2141 BC and count back 482 pyramid inches to the entrance, allowing each inch to represent 1 year, we arrive back at 2623 BC, which was the very year the pyramid building was started. Then measuring down the passage 688 pyramid inches from the 2141 BC date, we come to the beginning of the first ascending passage. Again, allowing 1 inch to represent 1 year, we find the date to be 1453 BC, the exact date of the Exodus, a date which started the biblical age known as the Mosaic dispensation, or the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. Now, as we continue to measure up the ascending passage, past the plugs, we find it to be exactly 1,485 pyramid inches in length, or equal to 1,485 years, which brings us to AD 33, the very year that Jesus Christ was crucified, which ended that age. The Grand Gallery, which follows, measured 1,881 1/3 pyramid inches, or 1,881 1/3 years, which brings us up to the date of AD 1914, the end of the biblical age known as the 7 times period of 2,520 years, which started with the fall of Assyria in 607 BC. When the sloping passage ended at the 1914 date, it appears that the inch scale also ended, and all attempts to decipher the horizontal scale has failed to produce any significant happenings, and the setting of future dates is very speculative. But it is not speculative to look back at the geometric triangle formed from a point where the floor of the Queen's chamber intersects with the floor of the ascending passage and the upper end of the passage. The north end of its base, marks the date September the 29th, 2 BC, which is the exact birth date of Christ. The apex marks the date April the 3rd, AD 33, the exact date of the crucifixion of Christ. Known Bible chronology gives the date of Mary's conception at December the 23rd, 3 BC, and the perfect gestation period, being 280 days, brings us to September the 29th, 2 BC, a confirmation of the date of the birth of Christ shown in the Great Pyramid. Significantly, the baptismal date for Christ, October the 14th, AD 29, is also found in the Christ angle by moving the base measurement of the triangle up to the sloping passage, confirming that 3.5 years after his baptism, Christ was crucified on Calvary. The Christ angle of 26 degrees, 18 minutes, 9.7 seconds, when applied to the parallel of latitude on a map of Palestine, leads directly to Bethlehem. Now, can there be any doubt but that the Great Pyramid is the sign and witness in the land of Egypt, as written by Isaiah? If there is still doubt, then it is against the laws of reasoning and logic. It is most significant that the Great Pyramid is depicted on the Great Seal of the United States, which shows 13 courses of masonry and symbolizes the unfinished Pyramid of Giza, which in turn represents our nation founded in 1776 AD as a godly Christian nation, contrary to that which is taught today. The eye in the capstone represents the all-seeing eye of God, watching over the destiny of this nation and revealing him as the architect of the Great Pyramid. The eye also symbolizes Jesus Christ as the stone which the builders rejected, as David wrote in Psalms 118, "But the day will come when it shall descend to complete our national structure with a divine completion." We look for the day of which the Apostle Peter wrote, "Behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect and precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded." The prophet Zechariah wrote of this stone, "He shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shouting, crying, Grace, grace unto it." Christians await that day when the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. After 4,000 years, the Great Pyramid stands decoded. It reveals that Christ is God, creator of the universe, and architect of the Great Pyramid. May God add his blessing to this study. A more complete study of the Great Pyramid is available in book form entitled A Study in Pyramidology.